Hi, everyone. Welcome. I hope that you can all hear us and that you can also see my screen. So I think we cannot actually see anything else. So this is GoToWebinar. This is how it works. All right. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kim Dixit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen, which is an education consulting company based in Mumbai. We have been operating here in Mumbai for the last for the last 9 years, and we've been hosting a series of live chats with admissions officers. If any of you were aware, I think hosted about 40 plus undergraduate admissions offices a few weeks ago, and that was really wonderful. And it was kind of gave us an indication of how much interest there is in finding out, and for people to find out, about different universities and education programs in the absence of being able to visit. So we wanted to extend that opportunity to our MBA applicants out there. We do support applicants all the way from, say the boarding school stage up to undergraduate college, MBA, PhD, whatever sort of educational path people are on, we offer that support. So in the background today, the manager of the MBA services line, who heads all of that for us, she's is with me, supporting me, helping me get through this technology. So Preeti Wadekar is there. I don't think we can hear her, but she heads our team, and she herself is a Columbia Business School graduate. So this is really exciting, I think, for her to have set this up and have Nicole here with us today. So yeah, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Nicole Shay, who is the Associate Director of Admissions from the Columbia Business School. And Nicole, thank you so much for joining us early morning from New York.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So what we're going to do today is I have to give you control to present, but I'll do that in a second. But just for the attendees to know, what we're planning to do is you should have a way to ask questions and type questions into a chat box. And those questions will come to me from Preeti, and then I will relay them to Nicole, and we'll kind of compile them so that everybody's questions get answered, and we don't have to kind of we can kind of manage any questions that are repetitive or anything like that. So yeah, I guess without saying any more, I will hand this over to Nicole. Let me see if I can do this.
Sure.
How do I do it? Okay. Hold on. Attendees. Make presenter. Okay, I did it.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us. Is it giving you the option
to figure it out? Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
So I hope that people can see my screen now.
Yes, I can see your screen.
You can?
There are kayaks on the front.
Oh, can you see it now?
Yes, now I can see Columbia Business School. Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim, so much for the introduction.
Sure. I'm just going to turn off my camera while you speak so I don't distract anyone.
Great.
Go ahead.
That sounds great. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for welcoming me into your home on a Friday evening. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm going to spend about 20 minutes giving an overview of our programs as best I can in that time frame. I could talk for hours about it, but I'll try to be succinct so that we do have time to answer your questions specifically. So I want to start off by letting you know that Columbia Business School has 2 entry options for a full-time MBA. We have your typical 20-month MBA program. So you'll have a fall and spring semester with a full-time summer internship, and then you join back in the fall for 2 more semesters before graduating in May. But we also have a January entry program, which we call the J-term, where you'd actually start your studies a term later in the spring, and then you'll do your second semester in the summer rather than a summer internship. You join back together and graduate in May with that August entry class. About 550 people decide to do August each year, and about 200 decide to do January. January is a great option for people coming from family businesses who are starting their own businesses, who are sponsored by their companies. It decreases that opportunity cost and allows you to complete the program faster without giving up any electives or in-class time, as well as you have the same student organization leadership opportunities. So it is a really great choice for people who don't need that summer internship. I want to start by talking about the academics of the program. I think that there are a lot of reasons and priorities for people to come and seek an MBA. And typically one of those is academics, hopefully. So we have 152 tenure track faculty. They are teaching core classes, they're writing papers, conducting research, publishing. And then we have 150 adjunct faculty. So these are leaders in their field who work full time, and then they'll come to campus, 1 or 2 days a week to teach an adjunct course. So on this screen, you'll see at the top Sheena Iyengar. She's one of our full-time tenure track faculty. She is very well known for her expertise in the area of choice. She's incredibly well known in the research community. It's hard for me to listen to like a fun podcast without hearing her credited, her research credited. She's also incredibly kind and engaging, and students love her. On the left-hand side of your screen in the middle, you'll see Matan Grafel. He is one of our adjunct practitioners. He works with companies like Bloomberg and PepsiCo in the day, and he comes to our campus often to teach one of our most popular electives, Introduction to Programming in Python. And then you'll see Geeta Johar here on the right. She is our Vice Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. She also is a full-time tenure track faculty. Her teaching generally is currently now, given her other responsibilities, our global immersion program, which we'll talk about later, to India each year. Onto our core curriculum. As you might have seen when I was talking about those two options for the starting point, regardless of which option you take, you're going to spend your first term in your core classes. And so this lays that foundation of business knowledge for you to be successful both as a business leader and in your electives. You'll have one additional core class in your second term, but as you can see, the majority of your time is spent taking elective classes. And in just a moment, we'll talk about how you select those electives and what is offered. But what's important to note here is that in your core classes, you are able to, you take these classes with the same 65 to 70 students that are called your cluster. And this way you have this fast family, this immediate network that allows you to be comfortable in a large place. And so also important to note that if you are a accounting whiz, or you work in corporate finance, or you have a competency in one of these areas, you can test out of some of these courses and fill those with electives so that you don't have to retake the class. A lot of people do still opt to retake these classes because they're incredibly dynamic professors teaching them. But again, just you're taking those core classes with your cluster and you spend your whole semester together with them. With electives at Columbia, you never declare a major or a concentration. So what that means is you pick and choose the electives that you think best serve you post-MBA. We have 14 areas of study. This kind of helps you to group the electives under their disciplines. This here on the screen is 6 of those 14 areas of study, and this is just a small sampling of some of the electives that fall under those umbrellas. We have over 300 elective choices across an academic year. And so truly there is a course or a kind of track for everyone. Some people will take a deep dive into something like healthcare. Other people maybe are thinking about starting a social enterprise app. And so in that case, they want to take social enterprise courses to understand that side of the business. They want to take tech courses to understand, you know, effectively managing an application company. And then they also might want to take management and entrepreneurship classes so that they can be successful in the starting and scaling of their own business. So it's really up to you. If you don't know how to choose the classes, there's a lot of built-in support through our Career Management Center and our professional organizations to help you choose the classes, and we'll talk about those coming up. In addition to the electives that I just talked about, we do have experiential learning opportunities. Given our location in New York City, we're able to offer immersion seminars. And so these are industry-specific electives for first-year students. They kind of span across all industries. And the format is typically that you'll spend a Friday morning talking about a company or some challenges that a specific type of company faces, and then you'll do a site visit in the afternoon. You'll speak with key leaders at the organization, and you'll have conversations about, you know, contemporary business challenges and solutions that they've found. I think a really great example of this is, it's called Internet Innovation. Oh, it's here on the screen. Internet Innovation, you'll talk about social media, big data, and then you'll go to companies like Facebook, the National Basketball Association, the NBA. You'll go to Google or Bloomberg, and you'll have conversations with leaders. And this expands your network. It gives you opportunities to create opportunities for you. So students really like having this practical experience before going into their summer internship. And then you have master classes. These are typically designed for second-year students. They're project-based electives. They are usually a semester long. And typically you are working on a real-life case study with an organization and putting together a plan, working with them, and then culminating into a final project that you have to pitch to their executive board. Every topic in class is a little bit different, but again, it's that real world experience allowing you to work in an environment where it is okay to fail, but giving you the support to succeed before you end up in the real world where failure is not quite as much of an option. So another, I think, incredible and often overlooked benefit of being at Columbia is the school year internship. And so a lot of our students do school year internships. The reporting shows anywhere from 30 to 50% of the students taking advantage of doing a part-time internship during the semester in addition to their summer internship, or for J-termers, just supplementing their experience with these part-time internships. I mention this now because internships can also be completed as an independent study with the mentorship of a faculty member. That allows you to get credit for the internship as well as lighten your course load for the semester to allow the free time to, you know, head downtown to the company and work with them. To further emphasize the advantage of being in New York City, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some of the companies that we have students going to part-time or full-time summer internships, or we have alums at. So it's not just your cities, it's not just your McKinseys, you know, you have IBM, you have the UN up here, you have Apple, you have Coach, luxury goods. And so there really is this breadth of opportunities in a city like New York. In addition to that, we have business leaders, you know, many business leaders who live here and call New York City home, but chances are any prominent business leader or world leader is going to find themselves in New York City at least once a year. And so we're able to bring leaders to campus, you know, nearly every day. We have over 400 guest speakers a year at the business school, and they are incredibly candid and kind with their time at the business school. So you'll see people like Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank, and of course her real estate business. Jamie Dimon has come to talk. Warren Buffett and Bill Gates visited campus a couple of years ago to address our student, Sally Kralchek, is one of our esteemed alums who has a very successful investing platform called Elvest. You have people like Carly Biji, who is a recent grad who took advantage of all of our entrepreneurial offerings and recently launched her own brand of micro-sized dresses. Her company is called Laws of Motion. And I think her story is a testament to our community. She stopped production of their dresses and they started making gowns and masks for healthcare workers. And so to see how agile our alums in our community is really incredible. So learning from these people day in and day out, another great exposure that you have being in New York. And then a really important part of your experience is going to be student clubs. Like I said, you spend your first semester in your core classes with your cluster, but you'll also want to connect with other like-minded individuals, and you do this through the clubs. So you'll join, one or more professional clubs, whatever aligns with your business goals. Through these clubs, you'll have second years who can mentor you through the recruitment process, help you with any questions that you have on how to get to the other side and be a second-year student, have that job offer. They put on conferences each year that attract business leaders from the tri-state area. And they do different treks. So the technology business group does a trek to San Francisco and or Seattle. The Media Management Association typically does a trek to LA and San Francisco. Healthcare will do a trek to the West Coast and or Boston. And so there are a lot of opportunities through these professional clubs, in addition to job and internship opportunities that come directly through the clubs. We also have a lot of fun at the business school. One of our most popular classes or clubs, social clubs, is the Wine Society, but we have a host of affinity and social clubs. So we have a South Asian Business Association, very robust and active. We have the Rugby Football Club is really a fun one where all of the students, get together on Wednesdays and have a happy hour hosted by that club. Gourmet Foods Club allows you to kind of see the city and get a taste of the city on a budget. So really fantastic. And then Follies, if you like song or dance, it's a great way to get involved that way. I know we are getting tighter on time, so I do want to get through this a little bit quickly. So apologies if I speed through, but we can get your questions answered. So Chazen is our global hub. So they host our international reach that can look like courses where you will study a culture or economy or companies, and then you will travel to that country to kind of talk to leaders on the ground. We also have study tours. These aren't for credit, but they're incredibly popular, where students lead their fellow classmates back to their cities, and they do site visits and cultural events. And so again, a really great way to get global exposure to global business exposure without having to spend a semester at another school abroad. If that's what you'd like to do though, spend one of your 4 semesters abroad, we can make that happen too. We have relationships with over 20 schools throughout the world to kind of help you meet your goals, whether they are US or internationally based. And then once you graduate, you become a member of our 47,000 strong alumni network all over the globe. You'll see here, blue is where we have alums and red is where we have alumni clubs. And this is not accurate at all. And this is specific to you guys because I can see a red dot where Delhi is, if I'm not mistaken, but there is also an alumni club in Mumbai and it's missing its red dot. So there are more than are depicted here, but there's incredible network no matter where you land for business. I've spent, it was about 2 years ago, visited Delhi, Hyderabad, and Mumbai, and I could not have been more impressed by the welcoming, collaborative alumni network that helped me kind of navigate my trip in India. And I was really surprised to see actually some of the alums that attended my events had met at these alumni info sessions that admissions hosts each year and then started businesses together. So a really, really impressive network that you guys have there. World-class career support comes through our Career Management Center, which we call our CMC. There are daily office hours. If you have an application you need to get in, but you need, a double check on that resume, you will have one-on-one advising starting before you even step foot on campus in the area of interest that you're pursuing at the business school. There's an alumni coaching program where you'll have one-on-one mentoring from an alum that's typically 5 to 10 years into their post-MBA career. We have executives in residence I'll talk about in a moment. And then we have over 60 second-year peer CMC fellows. And so these are second-year students who are paid to mentor you through the recruiting process. They're often kind of the best at doing that, given that they did it 1 year prior in the same industry. 71% of our students receive offers through schools facilitated opportunities. The other 31%, it can be a combination of the fact that they were sponsored or family business, started their own business, or they kind of went out and leveraged the network on their own and kind of carved their own path. So I mentioned executives in residence. We have 25 of them. These are captains of their industry. They're either retired or semi-retired C-suite executives who will meet with you one-on-one to give you that bird's eye view of an industry, to talk about their career or your career. It can be really what you want it to be. I think some great examples, if you're interested in retail, we have Terry Lundgren, who's the former CEO of Macy's. You have Mark Zurich. He was a managing director at Goldman Sachs. He's a very active faculty member. And he basically built out the derivatives desk at Goldman. He's a legend in his own right from the organization. So any industry you're interested in, you'll have, at least one person who would be happy to meet with you. I'm going to go through this quick because I am using up a lot of time. What we're looking for in an application, I know that this is the most important part to you guys typically. So it is a holistic review. We're looking at all aspects of your application, and we don't have any minimums for anything. We do have a class profile on our website to give you an idea of what the class typically ends up looking like year to year. But if you have a weakness, think about what your strengths are and try to kind of help balance them out. First, we're going to look at your undergraduate record. That will be the classes you took and how you did in those classes. No need to convert to a US 4.0 scale. You can just put in, the score that you have and upload those transcripts, and we'll take a look. We require a test, either the GMAT, the GRE, or the executive assessment. We don't have a preference on any of them, and we've talked to our recruiters at these big organizations about whether they have a preference, and they've confirmed that if you're coming from Columbia, there's also no preference on that test score because they know the rigor of the academic or the admissions process and the academic process. And so you can see our averages for the GMAT on our website. For professional promise, there is, this is kind of seeing what your work experience is, what experience and expertise you're bringing to the class to kind of understand how you fit in on a professional level. We'll ask you to submit a resume, 2 pages or less, no specific format. This is just as if you were to apply to a job, a professional resume. 2 recommendations. These should be professional recommendations. If you're applying for the full-time program, they shouldn't be scholarly or undergraduate professor recommendations. Ideally, one would come from your direct supervisor. However, we know that that could mean compromising a bonus, a promotion, or even your job. And if that's the case, there's a box that just says, I'm not asking my direct supervisor, and write a sentence or 2 why. You also may have a brand new supervisor and they don't know you very well. Just check the box and let us know that you have a new supervisor. But you should pick, a former supervisor at your current or a former company. If you work for a family business, clients can write great letters. That's a really good option. There's also, you can have people write it from your company. It just cannot be a family member. your post-MBA goal. We ask you to, let us know what you want to accomplish post-MBA in 50 characters or less. And then in that first essay, you will talk to us about your goals, your career goals 3 to 5 years down the line, and also your dream goal. And so this is a really important place to stop, think, make sure you're answering the question, and be pragmatic about this. So if you are, wanting to take a really large pivot that is going to be challenging, that's okay. People do incredible things at the business school, but maybe you want to talk about a plan B, or maybe you want to be very clear on the path that you've already kind of established for yourself and put that into writing. And then we'll talk about the interview when we talk about personal characteristics. So moving on to personal characteristics, built into the application, you'll want to talk about your extracurricular activities. So if you are doing activities in college, anything that you're doing post-college, and there's also a section for hobbies. And so if you don't have any post-collegiate activities, we'll look to see, you might be a consultant, you might be working 80, 100 hours a week. In that case, that's, perfectly reasonable to see nothing there. But we do want to see hobbies, what you do or what you would do in your free time if you had any. And then essays 2 and 3, these allow us to get a better sense of who you will be, not only in academics, but who you'll be in the community, because it's important to us that we have collaborative, kind, engaging students. It's not a transactional experience. It is building a community. And so with essay 2, it's the same question as last year, talking about your fit at Columbia, or why you feel Columbia is a good fit for you. And this is your opportunity to show us the research you've done on the school, and how what you've learned about the school is going to help to translate into you achieving your goals. Essay 3, I'm really excited to announce, is our new essay this year, and it was confirmed as of yesterday. So essay 3 will be to tell us about your favorite book, movie, or song, and why it resonates with you. And this should be fairly straightforward. It's an opportunity for you to give us a glimpse into what interests you, what is meaningful to you. And so typically when the question used to be about a leader, I'd say, don't pick Warren Buffett, don't, try to fit CBS in here. But I think it'll be harder to fit CBS in here, so that advice is a little bit less warranted. But just be yourself. It really helps us to kind of understand the side of you that isn't, focused on work. And so the interview is by invitation only, and it is typically done with an alum in your area. Right now, there's been this shift, and we've been doing virtual interviews with our full-time applicants. Members of our team have. It's yet to be seen what that will look like for 2021 applicants, whether it will be with members of our team, virtually with members of, or with alumni virtually, or if it will be a combination of both. And certainly we hope to do in-person interviews via our alums as soon as we're safely able. We did announce our essay questions yesterday, but we haven't announced our deadline. So you're probably all wondering when the new application will open. What I've been told is that it will likely open on June 5th. I cannot make any promises, but that is what we're anticipating, so late next week. The deadlines will be announced at that time, but here is a typical timeline. J-term and early decision is early October. Regular decision for the merit fellowship consideration is early January, and then our final deadline for August will be mid-April. If you are applying, so this is really important. All applications are reviewed and decisions are rendered on a rolling basis. This is very different than our peer schools. So if you are applying for J-term or August early decision, from the time you submit all of your materials, you will know within 6 weeks whether or not you're invited to interview. once we complete your interview, you'll know within 2 weeks whether or not you're admitted. And so this allows you to control your timeline a little bit. And it also allows you to demonstrate kind of your interest, have a little bit more control over how filled the class is. For early decision, we by no means admit the majority of our students in early decision. So if you need a bit more time, I will say that January deadline is the most popular deadline, and we'll often see over 1,000 applications on that day alone. And so we read applications in the order in which they're received. So as soon as you're ready, I would say to submit that application. If early decision is not right for you because Columbia, isn't your top choice and you're not ready to put down a large deposit, I would suggest applying regular decision. You can apply for regular decision before early October. Just know that your application goes into a queue. We just won't start reading those until we complete J-term and ED applications. That typically happens at the end of November. So say you submitted your regular decision application in September because you wanted to get it out of your hands and be early in the queue for the regular decision reviews. You'll receive an email in November saying we've started reading these and your 6-week timeline will start then. Anyone who applies after November, late November, that 6-week timeline will start once you have submitted all of your materials. And so I hope that that was clear. That is the process. And then I do want to take questions. And Kim, I think that I think you're managing that. Sorry, Kim, if you are speaking, I am unable to hear you.
Yes, I was speaking. I was talking away. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just saying thank you so much. You covered a lot, and I think I have some questions for you. We are getting questions now, but if anyone in the audience has questions, please do put them in the chat box. Specific questions about, the program, the application process, your particular situation. If it, could be broadly sort of helpful for others, you can ask those questions as well. So, yeah, without any further, I guess if you're done with your presentation, Nicole, I will then take over if I can.
Wait 1 second. Sorry, Kim, before you do that, just so people have this, because I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, how to get a hold of us.
Okay.
Can you see that on your screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so everyone who's listening, write down this email address. You can also readily find it on our website. All right, you're fine to take the screen then.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do that, but I don't know if I can actually.
Let me see if I.
You may need to give me the.
Yes. Okay.
Oh yeah, got it. Okay.
Great.
There, great. So can everyone see my screen now?
Oh, I cannot see. Oh yes, I think that is what we're looking at. Yeah.
Okay. Preeti, if or anyone else out there, if you want to just let me know if you can't see it, then okay. Show screen. Yeah, I think we can see. Okay, so I just want to go ahead and ask you some of the questions that we have prepared, and then I will also work in, like I said, some of the attendee questions. So the first question I have, is about the application process and what you look at, and like you said, the essay questions came out yesterday, so we know kind of, where we're headed with that. But I just wanted to know, the first question I have is, will you be paying more attention to certain aspects of international student applications during the evaluation process this year? So are there certain things that you'll kind of weigh a bit heavier? That is, are you looking more at, say, recommendations, or, will you be considering work experience differently? And, are you going to do you have a particular way that you need to evaluate, say, people who've lost their job or things like that. So how will you be looking at applications this year, considering the COVID-19 situation? Yeah, in fact, that question also just came across from one of the attendees. Do you foresee COVID-19 affecting the next application cycle? So can you talk about that specifically, and the application and evaluation process also?
Sure. So we don't anticipate any changes in the way that we evaluate candidates. So that's to say that you shouldn't approach anything different in terms of recommendations, in terms of your test score, or your essays, or your timing. However you would apply any previous years, go ahead, stick with that timing, stick with those people to write your letters. But Kim, you hit the nail on the head that people's situations are going to change. And so that might mean, okay, well, my approach is different because my situation is different. And certainly in the case of someone who has lost their job and either may be unemployed, or maybe it looks like they switched jobs really quick because they lost their job, and we're able to kind of find another solution. And maybe that other subsequent job was not quite as lucrative, but it was a job, and we all understand the need to be working. There is an optional essay 4 that I didn't mention. This area is not to kind of write any flowery prose or, post someone else's essay from another school that you thought you did exceptionally well into here to kind of demonstrate what you've done. But it is a place to explain where you think we might have any questions or concerns that doesn't have an outlet to do so otherwise on the application. So if you did lose your job due to COVID and you want to share that with us, this would be the right place to do so. If you are in talks with other companies, or maybe you secured a pre-MBA internship, any kind of, or what you're doing in your free time, I mean, that is a question. If you can fill in those blanks, it's super helpful to understand. Losing your job due to COVID is not going to preclude you from being admitted to the school next year. You just use that space wisely and tell us kind of what you've been doing, what is your plan, so that we don't have to fill in the blanks for you.
Okay, great. And along those lines, I have a question, which is asking about the GMAT. And someone here is saying that he or she plans to take the plans to apply in J-term for J-term, but is unable to take the GMAT because the GMAT centers are closed. As of now. And then the online GMAT isn't working for this person because of uninterrupted internet connection is not available. So what do you suggest in this kind of case?
It's a question that I've gotten from other international students as well. It's something that we talk about regularly. The hope is that test centers will open and be available before that early October deadline. So if this person were the October J-term deadline. So if you're considering J-term, you do have until early October to apply. I do understand that I just said it's rolling admissions and you should apply as early as you're ready. However, I think a lot of people will be in that scenario. J-term usually ends up being 55 to 60% international. And so you're not going to be alone in that. I think it will be a later process for a lot of people. That being said, you can submit your application up to 3 weeks before you take your test. There are risks involved in that, because if you have a terrible test day, that's the test you have to submit with. But we're monitoring that. Once the application opens and a little bit more time passes and we have a better sense of what direction the virus is going and what restrictions will be imposed globally in, say early July, early August, when things really get rolling with our applications for J-term, it's possible that we could come up with some other kind of solution. There have been no talks about it now, but it's something that we're monitoring. We're trying to be as reasonable and flexible as we can, but also making sure that the playing field is equal for all applicants. And so I appreciate that question. I'll definitely add that to kind of my feedback pool that I collect and kind of share, because I think that the concern is very valid, and we'll try to keep people updated.
So you don't recommend applying without it and then sending it later or anything like that? Just wait until you have a score?
Yeah, the rule is any materials that you want to submit have to be submitted within 3 weeks of submission. So I would worry that someone would have a bad test day, or they would go into the test center and there would be something wrong with the test center.
Right.
And then you're in a tough spot. And I just would rather someone wait the 3 weeks, especially for the J term where there's only one deadline. Wait the 3 weeks, see what happens on that day, and then be prepared to hit submit that day, because you just have to take a picture of your score and upload it. We don't have to wait for your official score.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that's very clear. I think, okay, I'm just looking at the questions that are coming across, and then I'm gonna just go ahead to my questions. So when it comes to, okay, you already spoke about this, but this was my next question about the essay questions and, you know, the new ones that have come out, and everybody's talking about, you know, why did they change the leadership one to the book or movie or whatever.
Yeah.
So is there anything more that you'd like to say about this? I think you covered it quite well, but I think, you know, it is a question, you know, everyone's going to want to know, you know, are they going to judge me if I don't pick, you know, Hemingway or.
No, that's a great point. It's so interesting, you know, why did we change the question? I would say part of it is that we get to read a different question. We, you know, as team members, we give a lot of input on what the questions are. And I think we are all kind of vote for a change, not because the leadership question wasn't a good one, because I think in my 5 years here, the leadership question was one of the better ones that we get responses on. But that it's nice to kind of see another perspective. And even more so, I think this question allows for people to be more genuine, where the leadership question, you know, it was a little bit easier to fall into the trap of picking a business leader and trying to take that path. This is going to force you a little bit out of your comfort zone, and we love to kind of see that response. No, we do not expect people to be choosing Hemingway or Shakespeare or, you know, I don't even know, like a revered musician, maybe the Beatles. I don't know what that says about me. See, I understand the nervousness. I say the Beatles out loud and I'm like, what are people going to think? But we want you to be true to yourself. And I'll say one of my favorite essay questions from years ago, I don't remember what the actual question was, like what you would want your peers to know about you maybe. And someone wrote this whole essay about binging The Office, the television show, the US based one. And I still remember that essay, and the way that he connected The Office to what was important to him was just really dynamic and interesting. And so, you know, don't worry about what it is you pick. We really just like to see the different perspectives.
Great. Okay. So just kind of how you approach it, not necessarily the exact, you know, sort of title you choose. Any of the other questions you want to say more about? I think that the, you know, the sort of, you know, why Columbia is, I think we got a lot of good information from your presentation that people can kind of follow up on and understand better why it would be the right fit for them. But anything else you'd like to say about the essays?
I'll re-emphasize for that first essay, and for all the essays, make sure you're answering the question. So if you're not sure, give someone else your essay. Don't give them the prompt. Ask them what they think the prompt is. That should help to better understand if you're answering that question. And in that first essay, if you have a pretty lofty goal, but you also understand that there might be other steps, career steps that need to be taken to get there, you know, make sure that you let us know that you might have to do, you understand you might have to do 2 years of banking before making that switch into private equity. You know, show us that full thought process. If your goal is, if your goal is private equity and that's the only thing you want out of the program, you know, be transparent about that too. But just so that we understand why you're coming to New York City, why you're uprooting your life, why you're paying all that money, so that we can understand that we can meet your goals given what we can offer.
Great, that's excellent. Okay, let me go ahead. Okay, so what is the best way for prospective students to learn about student life and on-campus experience? So like I said, you've just given us a lot of information. A lot of students can follow that up, but are there other avenues that either the admissions office right now is kind of putting together because you guys, people can't visit campus, or ways to contact alumni or anything else that you recommend so that people do figure out, how whether Columbia Business School is the right fit for them?
Yes, so there are a lot of upcoming virtual events, and talking about leveling a playing field, literally every prospective student has the same access to campus right now because we aren't inviting visitors to campus. We can't even go to campus. So there are a lot of opportunities posted on the events page of our website now, and then there will be more to come. So there will be a lot of J-term programming if you're interested in the January entry. There will be chats with alums, I believe, recent J-term alums. For both August and J-term entry, there are student chats, so chats with a couple of current students virtually. There are virtual class visits, so actually joining a summer class with other MBA students to kind of get the feel of what class is like. There are ongoing general information sessions that will cover similar information to what I covered, but we'll also have current students sharing their perspectives, and as well as some usually a spotlight on January term event. So definitely keep an eye on the website. We'll also have a travel schedule. Typically we come to India 2 to 3 times a year. And so what I'm anticipating is that we will also be doing regional specific events, inviting local alums to participate in those to try to recreate that in-person information session that would typically happen in cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad.
Okay, great. So an applicant should just sort of check in, keep an eye, get sign up for updates, and sort of collect that information as it becomes available, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. If you don't get emails from us now, you can go to our website and you'll see a green box that says stay in touch. Make sure you go in there, you put in your name and your like at least city and country, because we will send invitations for any India specific events, and we filter by country and or city. And so making sure that that's in there will ensure that you'll get those email invitations for those specific events.
Okay, super. Thank you. All right. Okay, I'm not even going to ask this question because I have a lot of better questions to ask.
Sure.
This one is I want to ask this question because I'm getting also a lot of questions on the chat about goals. So one of the questions is, what is Columbia Business School looking for in the goals section in a post-pandemic world? So if you can speak a little about that, and then
oh, you just cut out. But I can talk about the question. So Kim, unfortunately, I can't hear you, but let me try to answer the question on the screen. I'm not sure if we just can't hear you or if they can't hear me.
Kind of think about changing, or their goal should involve changing one of the either function, industry, or geography. But if an applicant does not want to do that, they work in, private equity or investment banking, and they just want to do more of the same thing, but they want to sort of they have a background, education background in engineering, and they want to get the MBA to kind of build up those business and professional skills, so that they can advance in their current role, then is that fine? Or what do you really expect from, sort of the goals question?
Yeah, so we're expecting transparency. About 50% of our students will come here to change industry or function or geography. The other 50% are telling us that they want to, grow in their industry and kind of hone those foundational business skills for the future. That doesn't matter to us which of those priorities you have. And a lot of times people think that they want to come in and continue in their industry, much like we talked about Carly Bigi, the founder of Laws of Motion, the dress company, coming in, came from consulting, thought she was going back to consulting, came in, launched her own business with a classmate. We're going to support you in whatever you decide to do once you get here. But if you are thinking about changing function, industry, or geography, what I will say is that changing function and industry within your 2 years at the business school is challenging. And that's when you're really going to want to start thinking about better articulating exactly how you see that playing out, making sure that you're pragmatic about it, even making sure that you talk to someone who's in that role, asking them, oh, would you hire me if I just had an MBA, a summer internship, and then came out the other side wanting to do this, making this huge pivot? That can really help to inform whether that's practical. That person might turn around and say, no, an MBA alone is not, and plus maybe a short internship is not going to get you there. You should, target maybe 2 years in this adjacent field and then come to me and talk to me, or, someone like me about that. So if you are trying to make those big jumps, do some research, understand what it is that is actually practical, and talk about that. A plan B is always okay if that's something you're okay with. Geography, perfectly reasonable to want to relocate to New York, to the US. Obviously things can get very iffy with visas in the US given the current administration, and even more so with COVID. But what's really great about Columbia and its global reach is that we have alums, we have recruiters coming from other major cities like, Singapore, Hong Kong, London, any major city in the world. And so if you are looking for a job in one of the major financial hubs in the world, chances are that's going to be an option for you.
Okay, great. Along that line, I have a few questions here about STEM designated programs, as well as scholarships for applicants who are looking, whose post MBA goal is entrepreneurship. So can you speak a little bit about those 2 points?
So we are now a STEM designated program, which means that anyone who graduated this year and beyond will have the flexibility in terms of the CPT or OPT allowances post-graduation. There's no special track, there's no special courses, it's just, the program itself entirely was designated as STEM. So that is pretty easy and pretty straightforward. Your second question was about
it had to do with sorry, the scholarship for someone who is looking at entrepreneurship.
Sure. So it's a good actually segue into talking about aid overall, and then we can talk about entrepreneurship. So we have 2 types of financial free money, as I would call it, at the business school when you apply, both need-based scholarships and merit-based fellowships. International students are equally as able to get these as domestic students. We don't distinguish between the 2. Merit fellowships are obviously based on merit. Need-based aid is going to be decided by the financial aid office after you're admitted and you submit some paperwork about your financial history. So for people that are coming in, that's going to be a pretty even playing field coming in, whether or not you're eligible for a scholarship or fellowship, because it's not dictated by your future goals. That being said, entrepreneurship is something that we are very supportive of at the business school. And so there are a couple of ways of getting funding. The first is if you want to spend your summer working on your startup, you can apply for the Summer Fellows track. And so if you're admitted into that program, and I know a lot of students who've done this program, one of my favorite students from Delhi that I admitted, she was a J-termer and somehow made this work. So anything is possible. You get a stipend from the university or from the business school to work on your startup in the summer, in addition to a lot of alumni and mentorship. But it allows you to spend your summer working on your own business without having to forego that salary that you might get from a bigger summer internship. So that's one way to work on your startup without foregoing any salary. And then the next thing is our Lang Fund. So the Lang Center is the name of our entrepreneurial hub at the business school, and they have a fund where students can apply for seed money up to $50,000. In addition to that, the center puts on all kinds of events and provides a bunch of mentorship to allow you to, pitch to for other funding. And then there's also the Startup Lab, which you can apply to, and that allows you to have space in Soho in Manhattan for up to a year after you graduate to work on your startup. Space in Manhattan is very expensive to come by to work on a startup, and you actually join a part of the Columbia University ecosystem. So it'll be a lot of other entrepreneurs working alongside you.
Okay, great. I think that those are really specific sort of ideas and resources for people to follow up on. So thank you so much for that. Okay, I have a couple of quick ones that you should be able to answer in a few minutes. One is the website does not specify a range for executive assessment scores. What is considered a good score?
So good question. This is the first, we've basically been taking it for a year. We started taking it at the end of last cycle, and we're nearly at the end of this cycle. So we don't have enough data and enough people submitting to give an indication of what a good score is. We just don't know. What I would say is if you need to hear a number, I would say shooting for a 155 or above. But that's just coming from me, having seen it for 3 years from our executive MBA students. I would say that that's a pretty solid indicator, keeping in mind that's a holistic review process. But what I will say is the executive assessment is good for people who are struggling with the GMAT and have a high IR score on the GMAT. Because the executive assessment puts that IR score in the total score, that's where we see people, they're like, in the mid 600s, the high 600s on the GMAT, but their IR score is stellar. They tend to do really well on the EA.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. And then the next question, which again you should be able to kind of answer quickly, is and I think this is coming because a lot of your peer institutions have done this, but the question is, if you've been rejected, you retake the GMAT and you get a higher score, can you resubmit in the same cycle with a higher score, or is that part of the next admission cycle? So basically, can you be reconsidered with a higher GMAT score?
No, not unless the test was taken within 3 weeks of submission. We only allow people to apply once for the same cycle.
Okay, got it. And then, okay, so this is interesting. It seems like it might be coming from another consultant, maybe one of mine. Does in the essay 1 about the goals post MBA, does 3 to 5 years mean including the MBA or 3 to 5 years post MBA?
It's up to you, really. Typically, I think what we're expecting is including the MBA. So we're trying to understand what's that job that you want when you graduate.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of what you see yourself accomplishing. And like I said, I think it says 3 to 5 years because if your heart is set on something like private equity, but you don't have investing experience, you would probably want to talk about what you might have to do between graduating and that role.
Okay, so don't sort of get really fussed over that 3 to 5 years and when it is.
No, it doesn't have to say like in 3 years this, and then, it's just kind of like a big picture. What do you want to be doing on the other side of the MBA? And also I'll mention, we ask for your long-term dream goal. You do not have to tell us how you get from your short-term goal to your dream goal. People never know. We just want to see what your dreams are. We love big dreamers.
Okay, great. That's good to know. I think that can be stressful. I think, okay, so the next question is, the question is that are domestic applicants compared against domestic applicants and international applicants are compared against international applicants, which is how everybody sort of seems to think that, you know, all Indians are against each other, are competing against each other. And is that true? And if so, then how does a green card affect that? Basically, citizenship status affect that sort of geography piece?
So at Columbia, absolutely not. It's not kind of, people aren't compared against one another in that way. It's not that simple. And it's very easy for us to say that absolutely that doesn't happen because we have rolling admissions. So, you know, I don't know what other schools do. We do not have the luxury of taking all of the applications for a cycle or a round and saying, who are the best of this in this cycle, and then admitting those people. We are admitting people as we go along. We have that promised 6-week window. So yeah, while you're being compared to your peers, whether they're domestic or international, in terms of, you know, their strength of their experience and their test scores, etc. If we like you, if we think you're strong academically, we think you're going to be a good fit in the community, you're going to get an invite to interview, because we don't have the luxury of waiting around to see if something better comes along. And I mean that in the nicest way, but it's just not how our process works. So even if we wanted to, which we don't, because that's just not how it works, is we don't have that luxury. We don't get to see what's coming down the pipeline. We don't get to rescind offers that were given out beforehand. It's really a focus on you, your success, your fit in the community, and I wouldn't worry about kind of your peers outside of that.
Okay, and so that sort of answers the green card question as well. It's not really relevant.
No.
Okay, so I know we've technically run out of time, but I do have 2 more questions if you have the time.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, one is about, I've got 2 questions, but they're both about reapplicants. So the question is, I'm not sure I understand how it's worded, but I'll read it like this. Can reapplicants submit a whole new application since the essay questions are different this year? Reapplicants always have to submit a new application, right?
So I do understand the question. So if you reapply, if you've applied in the last year, you're actually considered a reapplicant in a technical way, which means you only submit 1 essay and 1 letter of recommendation, and that essay is what has changed.
Right.
And so I say technically you're a reapplicant because you're within a 1-year window. So what I will say is if you applied more than a year ago, you have to fill out the whole application. If you applied in the last cycle, you have to fill out the reapplication. And no, you cannot submit all new essays. Do know that we will look at last year's application alongside it. So if you did spend a lot of time explaining a goal or a situation, you can reference back to that application. No need to kind of try to rewrite a whole narrative in this new 1 shorter essay.
Okay, great. I understand. And the other question about reapplication is, does it hinder your chances of getting accepted in the following year?
No, actually, we look very highly upon reapplicants. You know, what is important is how you answer that question of what has changed in the last year. Maybe you applied earlier, maybe you retook a test, maybe you got a promotion. Just being really thoughtful about why it is you think that you weren't admitted and showing that you took steps to address that. I think that that is the best advice that I can give in terms of reapplication, but we see a lot of reapplicants come through and be admitted in the subsequent years.
So would you say then it's okay if a reapplicant wants to change their goals?
Yes, so that will happen too. People might say, oh, wow, maybe my goal was a little bit outrageous given my experience. And now after talking to people in that industry, I realized that I maybe need to backtrack a little bit. And so if you reevaluate your goals and write an essay about how you've reevaluated those goals, and this is why you've transitioned to a new goal, 100% a fine approach.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so now my last question also gives you an opportunity to kind of give, advice and give and share your wisdom with with our audience and our group of applicants and consultants who are on this webinar. So the question is, what does CBS look for in an applicant? What traits does it value? And I think, if you can speak to this with regards to, I think in general, and also you mentioned the fact that, if you think somebody is going to be a good fit and can handle the academic rigor and is going to sort of is the kind of student you're looking for, the next step is you invite them for an interview. So that interview is, it's a hurdle, and it's something that comes, you've kind of like checked all the boxes till then. So what are you looking for in that interview in terms of these traits and things, and how, so I guess the question is, what are you guys looking for? What role does the interview process play? And, how should people approach that as they think about, Columbia?
Yeah, so what I will say is that it's definitely an art, not a science. So there's no algorithm behind picking someone. So don't try to game the system. And that kind of goes into the fact that we want diverse candidates. I get asked a lot, is it okay if I come from a big company that other people might be applying from? And then the other end of the spectrum, what if you've never heard of my company? What if it's a small company? The reality of it is we want people from both. Both of your perspectives are important and valued. And so just making sure that you demonstrate your own experiences and what you've learned and what value you've gained from that. But then the other really important part, Kim, to your question about characteristics, is your interest and inclination to share those experiences. So it's one thing to be a superstar, have a giant salary, have this incredible experience, and then not tell us that, and tell us you want to come for academics. We want people who want to share that with their peers. Maybe it's because they want to be the VP of the consulting organization, the association. Maybe it's that they love wine and they want to be the president of the wine society. We just want to see how you're going to interact with the community. Even if you're stellar, we want you to want to be a member of our community. Our community is so student-led, so student-driven. Our students really recognize that the success of each individual equals the success of the overall brand, of the overall alumni network, and they really help to build one another up. A great example is in our Management Consulting Association, our students who have that experience spend over 3,000 hours a year with their peers to prep for those consulting interviews. I think that's an incredible testament to the way that our students treat one another. And so we're looking for ways that in your past and in your future, you intend to be an active member of the community. And then you asked how that applies to something.
The interview.
The interview. Yes.
Yeah.
So the interview, I will emphasize, this is just one aspect of the application. And I think people worry that, I think some people think that because it comes last, it is the end all be all. But there are people that have great interviews that the committee ultimately decides aren't a good fit. And then there are people that have bad interviews that the committee decides that that is not an indication that they see an overall fit. So this is not the end all be all. It is going to be a very straightforward conversation, whether it's with a member of our team or with an alum. Obviously, we can't promise that the alum isn't going to ask something more technical, but they're not intended to. They're not trained to. We're just trying to understand how you articulate your experience, your goal, your fit at Columbia. And then we're trying to understand if, what you're saying to us, and the alums are trying to understand if that's someone that they would want as a classmate, as a fellow member of the alumni community.
Great. Well, that is extremely helpful. I think you've given a lot of really detailed information to our audience, and I really appreciate you taking the time on a Friday morning to go over all of this with us. And yeah, I have this slide up here with your email address, and if anyone needs to get in touch with you, and you also shared your own slide, but yes, please, I encourage everyone to reach out, look for that information. That's all virtual now, and sort of take advantage of the opportunity of hearing directly from you. So thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate it. It was my pleasure, doing this even on a Friday morning. I'm going to leave you guys with one piece of advice that I forgot to give you, it's that you should also connect with current students in this process, and there are a couple of ways to do so. And I'm sure you're curious as to how, but they can give you a lot of minute detail about industries that you're interested in. And so you can Google contact a student, Columbia Business School. You can filter by industry. You could filter by geographic location. You can also Google the student organization. So if you wanted to learn more about the South Asian Business Association, or if you wanted to learn about the Investment Banking Club, they all have contact links so you can reach out to leadership directly. So that is my last piece of advice to leave you, so you can learn more about our community, but you can always reach out to myself as well. I'm happy to provide advice and share experiences. Thank you so much again for the opportunity, Kim, and I hope that everyone stays safe and that I have the opportunity to travel back to India as soon as possible and see you in person.
Yes, we hope so. Thank you so much.